Good morning and welcome back to Tabletop Tuesday here on Gaming with ADHD, where today we're going to be doing a review of G.I. Joe Mission Critical, the board game from Renegade Game Studios. Now, I've already done a couple of videos doing an unboxing, looking at the miniatures, doing some painting on the figures from the game, and I finally actually got a chance to sit down with my son and play through the game a couple of times. And I have to say, there's a lot of interesting things about this game that if you're a fan of G.I. Joe, you're really going to enjoy. But doesn't mean it doesn't have its issues. So make sure you stay tuned for that. But before we get started, do make sure that you're subscribed to the channel. I try to put out a few videos each week covering all sorts of tabletop gaming content, whether it's board games, miniatures, role-playing, or anything in between, and I'd love for you to come along and to see what we have to share. All right, so first off, I'm going to go through the game in phases. If you've been a viewer of the channel for a while, you know I have a very small workstation, so I can't really set up the whole game to show you how it all works. So I'm going to break it up into parts. And the first thing we're going to look at is the setup for the players. So each player is going to get a character, and that includes the character card. So this is going to have an image, the name, and then basically your special abilities. So in this case, we're using Duke. He's the first sergeant. Once per battle, a hero of your choice may reroll any number of dice during an attack. Okay, pretty cool, pretty strong. Sounds definitely like a leader. You're also going to take the 10-card ability deck. Is that what it is? No, the combat cards. Yeah. Basically, it's a unique deck for each character. It has 10 cards, and you will take that, shuffle it up, and you will draw up to 5 cards. Now, the reason it says up to 5 is sometimes you're going to get cards that you don't necessarily need. But all cards also have these shields down here in the lower right. And if you are going to be taking damage, you need these cards in your deck. Otherwise, if you run out of cards, your character gets defeated and sent back to the pit. So basically, you can kind of decide at the beginning of the game how many cards you want to take out of your deck and put towards your actions, and how many to leave there for defense. So you're also going to take the miniature for your character. This is the Duke that I painted up for the game. You can check that on the painted miniatures review that I did. You're going to take 1 energy token. This is used during combats to form a pool of energy that all of the characters in the combat can play with. And then you're also going to take 2 activation tokens. Now, keep in mind, these setup rules are assuming that you're playing with a full complement of 5 players. The game does give rules for 2, 3, and 4 players. In addition, they did release a supplemental scenario where you can play solo. But just to keep it simple, we're going to just talk about the normal setup process. So this is what you're going to take as a player in order to start playing the game. All right, next up, you're going to set up the game board. Now here I've only set up half of it, again, due to the infamously small work table. But it's going to consist of the pit, which goes here in the center, and you will take your characters and place them into the pit. And then there are 4 locations. There's the Space Station Delta, the Cobra Temple, New York City, and the Jungle Laboratory. Once you place those down, you will take these 4 tokens, you will shuffle them up, and you will place 1 in each location. This is going to be important for deployment purposes of Cobra, and so you just want to put them out randomly. Doesn't matter the order, doesn't matter which one is assigned to which. You're just going to put them out on the board. The next thing is you will take the you're going to have a supply of these. These are panic tokens. you'll notice there is a number next to each location name, and that represents how many Cobra troop or how many bad guys can be in the zone before it becomes panicked. And so you want to keep these nearby your board so that if they do become panicked, you can make sure to mark it. All right, now next up you have what's called the power board. Now, the power board serves a multitude of functions. The first thing is that you're going to take your deck of vehicle cards, which apparently do not show up against my green screen. You're going to take your deck of vehicle cards. You're going to set it here in the upper left, and you're then going to reveal 3 different vehicles. Now, some of these are some additional cards that I've received, whether from expansions or the bonus vehicle packs. But you're just going to shuffle them all together, and they're all available in the same deck. So you don't have to change it based on the scenario. But you'll fill in 3 vehicles. You're also going to have the bonus vehicle token. Sometimes you'll receive that in the game, and you'll be able to use that to get access to a vehicle for free. Now, a couple of things that I will explain a little bit ahead of time because it will be a little bit more difficult as I get further into the review. But these lower portions of the board are used to, first off, track the available energy during a battle. So when you join a battle, you're going to take your energy token and add it to the board. And then as you defeat Cobra troopers, you're going to add them to this portion of the board. And these will act as your currency in order to gain access to the vehicle. So if I wanted to use the polar battle bear in my battle, I could take 2 troopers off the board, and then I could gain access to it and be able to use its ability. Now, one thing that they do mention, because you do have a limited supply of troopers, so if there are too many troopers out on the board and you don't and you need them for other things, you can go ahead and just take the wound markers and use those in place of putting the troops on the board. I'll be honest, when we were playing the game ourselves, we quickly just decided, you know what? Not needing to put the troopers on the board, and we just went ahead and put the wound tokens down. They give you plenty of wound tokens in the game, so it just makes it a little easier, a little faster, as opposed to having to swap out the troopers for the markers later. But obviously you can do either one that fits best for your play group. All right, now next you're going to create the deployment deck. Now, that is going to be coming from the universal deployment deck, plus you're going to need 3 of the boss, nemesis, and lieutenant cards as well. So what you're going to do is you're going to take the deck and you're going to shuffle it and then split it into 4 stacks of 5 cards. Now, in the last 3 stacks, you're going to take a boss card, and it's going to go into the last deck, or the last stack, I should say. Just put it in. I like to then take it and mix it up so that it's not necessarily the first. It's somewhere more in the middle or the bottom. It's not necessarily the one right on the top. Now, functionally, outside of some special abilities, the nemesis and the lieutenant cards work the same. So if you want to add in a lieutenant, then you do have to, because it has a different back from the lieutenants, you may need to put it under the table, something, if you want to mix it in. But if you want an easier game, set the nemesis card aside and just take 2 of your lieutenants. So again, face down, you don't know which lieutenants you're getting, so we can shuffle those up and stick them into the other stacks. So take that, and then we're going to take all of the stacks, put them together, and we have the completed deployment deck. All right, now the last pieces that you're going to need is the battle board, which you will also set next to the central game board. You don't have to do any other setup for it at the beginning of the game, so just this is it. Set that to the side. And then you're going to take the 2 trooper decks. So we've got one for the Cobra Troopers, and we've got one for the Crimson Guard. We're going to put those decks near the figures. Oh, I guess I should put the Crimson Guard next to the Crimson Guard and the Trooper next to the Troopers. And then randomly, it doesn't matter which, you're going to place one of those tokens with each of the deck. I like to put it on top of the deck, but you can put it by the deck, by the miniatures, however you want to do it. Either way, just something where you know which token is assigned to which type of trooper, whether it's Crimson Guard or Crimson Trooper. And once you've done that, that's everything that you need to do for the setup. Okay, so now you're ready to begin play, but what are you supposed to do? So, obviously, the objective is to find the Cobra boss and defeat them. If you manage to defeat the boss, then the heroes are going to win the game. Now, this is a cooperative game, so the winners, the heroes are either going to win together or they're going to lose together. But how does that happen? Well, if a hero is ever defeated, what will happen is they will go back to the pit, and you'll see that you start with 3 energy tokens on the pit, and you will remove one of these energy tokens. Essentially, it's a way to think about the resources required to bring that Joe back to health. So, when a Joe comes back, you'll take a token off. If for some reason a Joe gets defeated and there are no tokens available, you're going to lose the game. I mentioned earlier the panic number. So if all of the locations are panicked, then at the end of the round, you'll actually remove all of the energy tokens. And if they're all all the locations are panicked and there are no energy tokens on the pit, then the Joes are going to lose as well. So basically, you have to make sure that you're keeping the panic under control and that you're not letting your Joes get defeated too often, because if you run out of energy, you lose the game. Now, the game is broken up into 2 phases per round. There's the deployment phase, and then there's the action phase. Now, in a deployment phase, you're going to take the deployment deck, and you're going to flip over the top card, and you're going to count the symbols. So in this case, I have 2 black Cobra symbols, and then you're going to compare it to the symbol still on top of the deck. So in this case, the tank. And so I will take 2 regular Cobra Troopers, and I will put them with the tank. And then you'll flip over the next card. So I would add 2 more. The next card, I would add 1 to, we'll say the science section is over there. And in that one, we would add 3 Crimson Guard Troopers. Or actually, no, the 3 Crimson Guard would actually go over here. Sorry, did that wrong. Pay attention. And then, so that's our, but you're gonna do this 5 times. Then we're gonna have another one that goes, oh, we've got a lieutenant. So the lieutenant is going to come out. In this case, it's Major Blood. He's going to go to the globe section, and then we're also going to put another Cobra Trooper there. I realize I did not pull out all of the troopers, but I'm kind of limited on what I've got there. So now that we've revealed that one of our lieutenants is Major Blood, then we're going to actually bring out his deck and put it near the board. All right, now the Lieutenant, the Boss, and the Nemesis decks are 8 cards that are going to have the challenges that the Joes are going to have to face in order to defeat them. So in this case, it says Cobra will prevail, deal 2 damage to each hero twice. So when this card is encountered, everybody's going to take damage. There are different abilities. So in this case, it says fast and guard. Basically means this one's going to go first. And because it's a guard and it's got the little shield up in the corner around the health, then basically it has to be defeated or removed first. So basically, when you get into a battle, you put a selection of these cards out. Obviously, they will be all shuffled up, but then it represents a tougher challenge for the Joes to beat. But that's what happens when the lieutenant gets revealed. The bosses are revealed in the exact same way. And keep in mind, you only have to defeat the boss. You do not have to defeat the lieutenants in order to win the game. All right. Now, one other thing to keep in mind is that when the lieutenant or the boss comes onto the board, they're automatically going to panic the zone. So in this case, Major Blood comes out. We put him on the board, even though we're still underneath the panic limit for this particular zone. We're going to go ahead and put a panic marker on there. All right, and the last thing to talk about for deployment is that once a zone has reached its figure limit, so in this case, the Cobra Temple has a limit of 5. Anytime you are told to deploy something to that zone, you will then deploy the figures to the next zone clockwise. So say I have to put out 2 more Crimson Guard, I'm going to put them here at Space Station Delta because the Cobra Temple is already full. Again, if I was told to deploy at the Cobra Temple. All right, now that the deployment phase is done, we're going to move into the action phase. Now, the action phase, you have your character, and you're going to have a number of action tokens. Again, it can adjust based on the number of players, but we're talking about if you're in a 5-player game. So in this case, you would have 2 action tokens. And on your turn, you can take... or you can use each action token to do one of 3 different things. You can spend one of them in order to move your character. Now, you can move your character as far as you want. So if you're in the pit, you can go to any other zone. It does not matter which one you choose. If you're at the space station, you could then go across the board to New York City, or you can go from the space station to the pit. Whatever it is, you're just going to use one of your actions and you can move in any direction. Now, if you do go from a location to the pit, then you can actually take one of the energy tokens if you do not have one. In addition, you can take your discard pile and shuffle that back and draw up a new hand of 5 cards. This is... the power up when you go to the pit, it is a free action. So basically you can just spend your action to move and be able to do all of the other things as well. The next thing that you're going to be able to do, so say I've moved from the pit over to the Cobra Temple, I can initiate a battle. I'll actually, follow up this segment with a description of how a battle works. And that initiates a fight between you and whatever bad guys are in the area, whether it's troops or a lieutenant or a boss. Whoever's there, that's who your character is going to fight against. Then finally, the last thing that you're going to be able to do to spend one of your tokens is to do a recover action. And with a recover action, you're going to take your deck that I somewhat misplaced. Haha. Absolute professionalism here, sir. Or folks. All right. So you're going to take from your discard pile a number of cards with shields worth up to 6. So basically it's a way you can get these cards from the discard pile back into your hand without having to go back to the pit. All right, so those are the 3 different actions that you can take. Now, because you are playing cooperatively, you can also spend them in any order. You don't have to go around the table clockwise. You don't have to use all of your actions before another player can go. I can spend an action. You can spend an action. The peanut gallery next to me can take an action. However it is that you want to spend your action tokens can be done so. So work as a team, as a group, to figure out what the best order is. Take into account your character's special abilities and the threats that you are facing. It's actually one of those things where I do like that in cooperative games, just because it allows you to set things up, play out some combos, and have a little bit more fun with it, as opposed to, kind of being stuck and waiting for your turn to come around. Okay, one quick clarification, because I misread the rules in the way that I record my videos. I don't really have a way to edit it out. But I did make a mistake. When you declare the move action and go to the pit and do a recovery, I said that you would take an energy from the pit in order, if you did not have one for your character. I was mistaken. You actually will take it from off of the board in the supply, instead of taking it from the pit. So don't worry about going and doing a recovery action to rebuild your deck and get a new energy token, because you're not going to exhaust it from the pit. All right, now let's set up for a battle. In this case, we've got 2 Cobra Troopers, a Crimson Guard, and we've got Major Blood down here. So what you're going to do is you're going to see that you have 4 spaces at the bottom. This is going to be for your troopers. And you're going to have 4 spaces at the top. That is for the boss or the nemesis. Now, for each of the foot soldiers at the location, you're going to take 1 card for each. So we've got a His Tank Assault for the Cobra Troopers. Notice this says guard, and it has the shield. So we're going to go ahead and put that in the first box. And actually, let's find it. There we go. And then we've got a Rattler attack. Now this is fast. And so fast is going to slide all the other cards down, and it's going to take the first spot. Now, we also have Crimson Guard. And so we're going to take the top of our Crimson Guard deck, and we're going to put it in the next spot. So, that also has Guard. So remember, cards that are marked as Guard must be defeated first before you can defeat any other units on the board. Let's focus a little bit. Sorry for the glare, folks. Now, if you have the lieutenant or the boss, you're going to shuffle up their deck as well. Actually, it should already be shuffled up, but that's a separate issue. And you're going to fill in the 4 spaces at the top. So it's always 4, and the same rules apply. So guard is going to need to be defeated first. Fast is going to go to the leftmost spots, and you'll keep going until everything is filled up. All right, then the last thing you're going to do in order to set up for a battle is you're going to take 2 energy from the supply. Now, normally you would put this on the other board where you have the vehicles and track the troopers that you've defeated. But for now, we're just going to set it here in the middle so you understand. And then each hero in the battle will contribute 1 energy as well. This is the energy that's available to all players in order to play the cards out of their hand during the battle. In addition, each player, and I keep misplacing Duke's deck of cards. All right, so each player, if they have less than 5 cards, so say Duke only has 4, can draw a 5th card at the beginning of the battle. Alternatively, they can just stay where they're at. If they already have 5 cards, they can't draw anymore. They can have no more than 5 cards in their hand going into a battle. Now, to begin a battle, normally the Joes would get to go first. The exception is if any of the cards have fast. So any cards marked fast will go before the Joes, but then you will alternate each turn in order to get to the end of the battle. So in this case, Major Blood would go first. So his first card is fast and has guard. Let me focus in so you can see it. And it says deal 2 damage to each hero twice. Okay? So you're just automatically going to take 2 damage tokens and give that to your to each of the Joes 2 times. Now, that's where the cards in the deck are going to come into play, because in order to stop it, you're going to draw a card, look at the number of shields, and in this case, we've got 1, so we would have to draw another card, and we have 2, and so then we would discard those cards in order to cancel out the damage. If I have no cards in my deck, if they've already been discarded, then at that point I will be defeated, and my character will get sent back to the pit. Now, after the bad guys go, then it's going to be the option for the heroes. Now, horribly focused. Now, the way that the cards work is the number in the upper left represents the cost. So that's how many energy tokens you would have to spend in order to use that card. So most heroes are going to have most of their cards with 0, so it's not going to cost you any energy. In this case, so I could play Charge from Duke. I could roll 2 dice on the attack and gain 1 energy. So we're going to take 1 energy from the supply and put that into our total. The dice are custom. Basically, though, the circles are misses, single hits, double hits. So for the charge, I would roll 2, and in this case, because the Cobra Will Prevail card is guard, that has to be defeated first. So I would take 2 damage markers and put it onto that card. So again, you're then going to keep alternating back and forth until either everybody has gone or until the everybody is defeated, or on either side, whether the bad guys get defeated first or the Joes get defeated first. Now, in order to consider a lieutenant or a boss defeated, you must defeat 4 of their cards. Now, the nice thing is this doesn't have to be done all in one turn. So, or one battle, I should say. Once a lieutenant, nemesis, or boss is defeated, however, you will go ahead and end the battle. The villain and the troopers are all returned to the supply at the same time. Otherwise, once you've gone through the villain cards, you then go down to the trooper cards, and the same process continues. Now, keep in mind, if a Joe can ever not draw a card for defense, then they are defeated, and they'll go back to the pit, costing you 1 of the energy in the pit. And basically, you'll just, you keep going until every bad guy has had 1 chance to go. So you'll actually want to use that to your advantage. Find ways to eliminate cards that you can eliminate. Try to get those removed from the game before you get to them, and then basically just keep going from there. All right, now once a battle is complete, there is a little bit of cleanup that you're going to have to do. First off, for any card that was defeated, which will typically be indicated because they'll be face down, but you'll take those. Now, for the lieutenants, you want to set these into a discard pile because obviously you need a way to track that they've taken 4 hits and have been defeated. So you'll put this next to the lieutenant deck. The remainder of the cards, you will pick those up and you will shuffle them back into the deck for the next time that villain is encountered. And then for the trooper cards, you will do the same thing. If they are defeated, you will go ahead and shuffle them back into their deck and get ready for the next battle. Now, these you do not have to save because the troopers are going to keep coming, over and over and over. So, those cards just go back to the decks that they came from. That ends the battle, and then you're going to go back to the deployment phase. Now, one thing I forgot to mention about the deployment phase is that after you've taken your 5 cards for deployment, you will put them on the bottom. You'll shuffle them up, and you're going to put them right on the bottom of the deck. Okay? So you'll just keep going. So then eventually you'll reveal your next nemesis, in this case, Dr. Mindbender. And eventually you'll reveal the boss, Cobra Commander, obviously, for the beginning of the game. And so they can stay out, and your deck will just keep cycling through, until either the villains or the heroes win the game. But then you'll do a new deployment, you'll do a new action phase, and wash, rinse, repeat. All right, now, I know that was a lot to get through, and I do appreciate you being here. I am trying a little bit of a new format. I hope it wasn't too jarring or too disjointed, because, honestly, I enjoyed the game. It was a lot of fun. It really does have a G.I. Joe feel. The abilities of the different characters, the abilities of the villains, the way that things deploy and move around the board, it did feel like an episode of G.I. Joe. One criticism I do have, though, is that at least out of the box, there's only one way to play. It's that game over and over and over. Now, that's not necessarily a bad thing, but I personally have, been, I guess we'll say, conditioned by a lot of different games, especially in this type, to have different scenarios, things that give you more to do. But that's also not necessarily a problem for this game. Number one, it keeps the actual playtime down. The game is only going to take about an hour to an hour and a half to play. My son and I, for our first game, only took about 90 minutes, and that was literally the first one with lots of going back and reading the book. So there are, it's not like this is a game that you're going to have to dedicate an entire weekend to. And number two, they actually do have additional scenarios. Now, this is based on the Power Rangers Heroes of the Grid game system. They have a name for it. I forget what it is. But for the Power Rangers, they've actually released like 20 different scenarios. Now, the games are slightly different, so you can't just go and take the Power Rangers scenarios and use them with G.I. Joe, although it's not going to be that difficult, to be honest with you. And so there are ways that they are looking to expand the game, make it a little bit more involved, a little bit more complex. Now, I have not tried the one scenario that they have for G.I. Joe yet. We're still actually kind of getting our feet under it with this. But overall, we enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun. It was nice to have the big figures out on the board and be able to move them around. Now, I do have a couple more criticisms about the miniatures. They look good. They paint very well. I've had an absolute blast doing them. It's been a little different working with them because the scale difference is there. but I'm not necessarily certain that it was needed. I think they could have gotten away with 28 millimeter miniatures. And the funny thing is, I would have accepted 28 millimeter miniatures because the miniatures for Mission Critical are about 48 millimeter and or 44, one of the two. Regardless, they're really big. And yeah, no, it's 44 millimeters. That's right. Because I should have been saying 32 millimeters for the figures, or for the smaller ones. I would have preferred smaller figures, and then a way to actually put all of the figures from the expansions, things like that, into the box. The big figures are nice. I don't think they're necessarily needed, but they are kind of fun. So I'm not actually. It's criticism, but it's kind of a half-hearted one. Overall, the game was enjoyable. It was a lot of fun. If you are a fan of G.I. Joe, whether from the 80s or the modern G.I. Joe with G.I. Joe Classified, I highly recommend that you pick this up and just have some fun with it. Just, play that nostalgia trip and, go into it knowing that it's going to be a nice, light game that's just fun. You're not looking for anything complex. It's not, the grand strategy. Just have some fun and beat up Cobra. So with that, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please do give it a thumbs up. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel. And also down below, I will have links to Facebook and Twitter, where just our social media. So we announce our new videos that way as well. So give us a follow if you'd prefer that. But otherwise, thank you so much for watching, and we'll talk to you next time.